morning and welcome back to another episode of 56-Bit Cloud Cafe. I'm Atir Dalal and today we have an exciting episode lined up as we delve into the wonders of the EC2 universe. Good morning and welcome back to this new episode and final episode of EC2. Today we will be going through a very important topic and the most common question usually. It's about cost saving. We will be having Patrick with us. Hello, Patrick.
Hello, Atir.
Let's start. So today we will be talking about cost management and cost management strategies for EC2. Understanding pricing models is crucial. How can users effectively manage costs, and what are some best practices to optimize their EC2 expenses?
Yes, so EC2 and AWS more specifically cost strategies and cost savings is something we see a lot of because in AWS, as we all know, it is not about having capital expenditure, meaning buying something up front, but rather you are buying as you go along. So the more you use, the more you pay, and you pay it after you use it. That is the default model, pay as you go. This operating expenditure model gives a lot of advantages, but it might also reduce. It's a completely different way of doing things. So it might take a bit of a change in mentality of how you budget for IT and how your IT spend will be spent, basically. So in EC2, there are three main models. There is the on-demand, which is the default way of doing things, right? So you bring up an EC2 instance, let's say one. That EC2 instance, you pay a price per hour. Now, in reality, if you bring it down after half an hour, you pay pro rata. So it is priced per hour, but ultimately you pay to the nearest minute or even seconds sometimes. That is called on-demand, and it's the easiest method. You just use the resource or more than one resource, and you pay for it at the end of the month. That is also the most expensive option. So if you want to reduce your pricing, you might want to go a bit deeper in how pricing works. And the second option you have is by purchasing a set amount beforehand. So this is going back a bit towards the capital expenditure method, where you might know for sure that you're going to use, let's say, 2 servers of this specific size and type for a whole year. So if you already know that you're 100% sure you will use them, then you have the option in AWS to tell AWS, listen, I'm going to purchase these 2 specific servers for a whole year. And you give me a discount because AWS has that knowledge and that has that ability to know how much you're going to use. Then it can give you a discount on that. And here discounts range from 20% to up to 60%, so it can vary a lot. And it varies depending on how much assurances you're going to give AWS. This is a legally binding agreement where you say, I'm going to use X amount for a year, or X amount for 3 years, or I'm going to use it for 3 years and I'm going to pay everything up front. That is the highest cost savings you will get, the highest discount. If you say you're going to do something for 3 years and you're going to pay everything up front, so you don't pay per month, but rather you pay in the beginning when you make this decision, then that is the highest discount you get. But there is a whole range of options there, and you can pick and choose what is best for you and your risk profile. So that option 1 is on demand. Option 2 is pre-purchasing. Then there is also option 3, which are called spot instances, which we discussed in the last episode, but it's worth reminding that certain workloads, not all workloads, but certain workloads can take interruptions. Nothing big will happen if they are interrupted. Those types of workloads which can be interrupted would work well with spot instances. These are instances which are very cheap, they are highly reduced in terms of price, but ultimately AWS has the right to terminate them at any point. So if your workload can take that kind of termination, then great, you can use spot instances. There are many other strategies, of course, but knowing the 3 different models is essential to choosing the right cost strategy for you.
Since cost saving is the most lovely topic for all people, let's dive a bit deeper into cost saving tips. What strategies can users implement to ensure they are getting the most value out of their EC2 investments?
Okay, so if we had to go deeper into cost strategies, as I said, first of all, choose the right type of pricing strategy. So either on demand or what we call reserved instances or compute savings. These are the pre-purchased options, or spot instances. But in reality, you can mix and match these. If you have an auto-scaling group, which allows you to bring up more than one server, even automatically scaling in and out, automatically bringing new servers up and bringing them back down depending on demand, that auto-scaling group can have a mix and match of these 3 different types of pricing options. So one best practice would be to have a base layer at the bottom of pre-purchased servers. So servers you're going to always need. Say 5 servers for a whole year of this specific type. Then on top of that, you can have some on-demand servers because you are probably going to use these, so you don't want them to terminate. And then you can top it off for that peak demand when you have a lot of traffic with spot instances. So by mixing and matching, you can have the best hybrid solution in terms of cost savings. Then, of course, EC2 is not just made up of compute power. There are other elements you need to take care of, like elastic block storage, which is the storage that those servers run on, as well as VPC, the networking layer of EC2. So you need to take care of those external but very interrelated services as well. Things like moving data from one region to another. That can cost money. Moving data from one availability zone to another. That also can cost money. So you need to balance reliability and speed with cost savings here. You might also want to use the right type of instance. In the very first episode, we discussed that EC2 has different type of instances. Some instances are good for memory-intensive databases, others are good for compute, others are good for machine learning and artificial intelligence use cases. So choosing the right type will give you better efficiency on those servers. And one final tip is to monitor. When it comes to cost savings, it's all about monitoring your usage. If you see servers that are underutilized, meaning, for example, their CPU is constantly being used at 3% or 4%, this is a very common scenario, those are being underutilized. So reduce the size of those servers, reduce the number of servers, maybe change the type of server, but ultimately make sure that the CPU and memory are being utilized at their optimum, whilst leaving a buffer to ensure that if you have a higher demand, you can easily cater for that. So monitoring is always essential. Analyzing those costs and always seeing on an iterative basis, always seeing how you can improve your cost strategy.
Okay, in the previous episodes, we've went through several topics about EC2. Now, by ending this episode, I would like to know from you, can you share with us some real-world EC2 stories or success stories you've passed through, or lessons you've learned from diverse use cases around industries?
Yes, so at 56-bit we have used EC2 a lot. It is one of the core services. It's where most of the magic in AWS happens, unless you start going towards managed services. So when you have non-managed services like EC2, it means that you are in control of most of the things that happen in your servers, and you're also responsible for most of the things that happen. So some clients prefer going there, doing it like that, rather than having a managed service, which we'll talk about in future episodes. When we're using non-managed services, there are many use cases. Here we're talking about from a simple web server, which transmits a website to the end user, to the browser of the end user. That is a very common scenario. Other very popular use cases would be using EC2 for storage systems. Maybe your software that handles storage needs to be installed on a specific piece of hardware, and EC2 has so many options, including the ability to store a lot of data. Other scenarios we've seen are handling backend systems. These are systems which run the processing that is coming from a front end. So the front end would be the website, and the backend would be what handles that processing and then saves onto databases. We've had use cases where we install databases on EC2. And an important topic that is coming up a lot is machine learning and AI. There are specific types of instances in EC2 which allow you to do machine learning and AI in a very efficient manner, and that machine learning power comes from learning from patterns. That pattern recognition takes a lot of CPU power, and a lot of the time that power comes from EC2. But of course there are other options today which are managed, but here we're talking about non-managed services.
By this, we have reached the end of our EC2 series. If you have any topics that you would like us to go through, please don't hesitate to share it with us through comments or through social media. Until then, happy cloud computing. To stay connected and never miss a beat, be sure to follow our podcast channel for the latest episodes. Also, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn to know more about all the updates in Cloudfield and to know more about our upcoming webinars and events.